Welcome to the January 22nd, 2025 meeting of the Town of Concord Historic Districts Commission. The commission will review 3 new applications, 1 continued application, and 2 items under other business. We're conducting this meeting online in accordance with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. The public may access this call through both telephone and video conferencing. Members of the public will have an opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment on applications and discussions following the petitioner's presentation and questions from the commission. To do so, please raise your hand in the participant function of the Zoom meeting platform. If you're calling in and cannot use the platform, you may raise your hand by dialing *9. Our host will mute microphones of those not speaking, and in order to preserve bandwidth, may need to turn off video, with the exception of the commissioners, the host, and the current applicant. The chair will call on commissioners for comments on an application and then open the meeting for public comment. Once there are no more public comments, I will ask for a motion from the commission to continue to approve with conditions, or to reject. A second, and conduct a roll call vote. Once the commission has acted on an application, the applicant is free to leave the meeting. Let me have a roll call for all members that are here. Bill.
Here.
I'm here. Louis.
Here.
Tim.
Here.
Let me see. Walter.
Here.
Kate.
Here.
Who am I missing here? Catherine.
Here.
And is that everybody? I think it is.
No,
Yeah.
the other Luis is here.
Oh, Luis, sorry. Luis, I don't want to forget you. And Luis. Now, this January is the time for changing of the guard. So I'm stepping down as chair, and Kate is coming in as chair, I hope, because we need to vote on this. And we can accept other nominations, but I hope you will accept Kate as the new chair. And also, Tim, whether you knew it or not, you're going to be the vice chair. Is that what we call it?
Yeah.
Vice chair. So Tim will be the vice chair. I have not mentioned the voting members yet. I'll let Kate do that once she is the new chair. So are there any nominations from the floor? Gee, Kate, no one wants your job.
You sure?
So let's go around and see if we have the votes to make Kate the new chair. Bill?
Aye.
I'm an aye. Louis?
Which Luis?
Is an aye.
Not Louis, not Luis. Louis is an aye. Tim?
Aye.
I don't know. Kate, do you get to vote? I guess not.
I guess not.
Walter?
I'm surprised, but aye.
And Luis?
Aye.
And Catherine, I see you here.
Aye.
Great. Well, Kate, welcome. You're the new chair, so I will turn the whole thing over to you.
Well, Dennis, thank you. You were an excellent chair, and I hope you'll still continue to be vocal. Are you still a full member?
No,
right? You're
believe it, I've never been. I have not been a full member in this round of serving on the HDC. So I'm an associate member. So I'm a non-voting member now that I'm no longer chair.
Oh, interesting.
Unless you need someone to fill a space.
Right. Okay. So, full members now are me, Tim, Kristen, Catherine, and who else? I think we all thought it was you, Dennis.
Nope, not me.
Well, you were a voting member when you were chair. So now when you're not,
As interim chair, I was allowed to vote, but I'm no
so
longer chair.
we need a full member. We're down a full member.
My understanding is that I have been put forward to be a full member, but I haven't heard confirmation.
Right, it hasn't been confirmed yet. So we're down a full member.
Okay. I'm just also trying to think of who's going to vote tonight.
Walter.
So you can appoint
Walter.
anybody to vote. You don't have to appoint just full members.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Right. Okay. And because we'll also need Tim needs to recuse himself for the first item. So I'll need two to go in. Okay, so voting members for the first item will be me, Kristen, Catherine, Walter, and let's put Lewis in there.
I don't think, is Kristen with us?
Yeah, I'm right here.
There you are. Oh, God, I missed you. Sorry, I didn't ask you in the vote.
Yeah,
Sorry.
no, I'm
Oh.
here.
Are you okay with the vote? Would you like to object to the new chair? It's okay.
No, yeah, no, definitely in favor.
I don't think you were in when we did the vote. Sorry.
Yeah,
Okay,
just
all
to clarify, as we have two Luises, and I usually address myself as Louis, and Louis addresses himself as Louis, then I suggest that either we use, I don't know, Louis D or Louis B or Louis, or just to make sure that they're referring to me instead of,
Okay, I could say Dr. Lewis.
Yeah,
no,
okay.
no.
I
That
think of
would
you as
be,
Luis, and I think of him as Lewis.
Me too. Mhm.
okay, yes, I'll be
Yeah.
Luis.
You
You're
get
Luis. Yeah. All right.
Luis.
I'm pretty clear on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Just
Okay.
narrow.
All right. So, okay. Let's start with the first item. Let me clear this up. Thank you everybody for coming and for presenting this evening. Our first item is for 393 Main Street, Monique Medici. To remove slate shingles and replace with asphalt shingles.
Hey, Kate, I think I'm first.
Oh, geez, Tim, you are first. I just said
Unless you already approved it, then maybe I missed it.
No, I'm really okay. Apologies to 393 Main Street. In fact, the Whitneys are first. Thank you, Tim. First item, 315 Lexington Road to add a black chimney cap vent. And Mr. Whitney, you're presenting on behalf of 315 Lexington Road.
Correct.
Then you have the floor.
And I think everybody knows I'm recusing myself as a member of HTC. So if we could just bring up the photos, Kim, just to remind everybody of my house. Kim, you okay?
Yep. Just trying to get it, getting the website up. Okay.
Yeah, so this is very small, very minor. I hope you agree, but it is potentially visible, and I felt it was my duty as a member to make sure that anything that might be visible is presented. So this is a I revised the submission after the first submission that was not reviewed back in December. It's a sidewall vent to an existing chimney to vent a gas fireplace, a new gas fireplace. And you can see in there, it's about a 12-inch square piece of flashing that goes against the chimney. And there's a vent that's about a 5.5-inch diameter vent that sticks out about 8 inches, all painted black. And I'll show you where this goes. I try to put in absolutely the least visible spot. This is a view from Ridge Road. It's not a view from a public drive. It's Ridge Road comes off Lexington Road. So I just want you to be aware of that. But that little arrow shows you where the vent is. It's down below the ridge of the main house. Thank you. Thank you, Kim, for circling it. And it's this little tiny black nub that sticks off the side. Originally, we had thought about putting it up in the chimney cap, but it turns out they don't think there's the proper wind flow. And actually, I think this is a more invisible spot. It's set back from the eave of the house about 8 feet. But or the rake of the house. So Kim, is that possible? You could rotate that image? Thank you.
Yep.
So there's one spot, if you're coming down Lexington Road away from town, you might see part of that black little 5 to 8 by 8 inch black vent. Not even sure you can see it, but that's how close it is. We're holding it just a couple of feet off the roof. Next photo, please, Kim. And as you move just a little bit farther down Lexington Road going away from town, you can see that chimney disappears completely and is not visible. So there's only one spot coming from the west that you're 200 feet away that you might be able to see part of this little black dot. Next photo, please. This is going by the house a little bit more, moving easterly. Again, there's 2 chimneys on the back of the house. They're not even visible on this side of the house. So I just want to be able to be aware that there's absolutely nothing visible. It's just one particular spot. I think that's it, Kim, I think, for images.
Okay.
So that is my very long and complicated presentation.
Well, thank you, Tim. Let's see. Do any members have any questions, comments, or observations for Tim?
I will say it looks fine.
Mhm.
I would agree. All right. Let's see. Any public comment? Any neighbors in the vicinity would like to remark? Astonishingly, no. So I think we could vote if someone would like to make a motion to do so.
To do it, I move that we approve Mr. Whitney's 315 Lexington Road chimney cap vent installation
As submitted.
as submitted.
A second?
Second.
Thank you. Let's see, I'll go around for the vote. Catherine,
Aye.
Walter,
Aye.
Kristen,
Aye.
Louis Calderella,
Aye.
and I am an aye. So the Whitneys have their unanimously approved chimney cap vent.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Now, moving forward to 393 Main Street, Tim, you'll come back on as a voting member. And Louis Calderella, if you don't mind stepping down. Thank you. Thank you for your service, Louis. Okay, so back to Monique Medici about the slate roof. And I'm not sure if the homeowner is here or if her representative is here. For 393 Main Street? I'm not seeing.
I don't see
Kim,
any- Yeah,
any
I'm
insight?
looking at the participants. I don't see anybody
I don't see either name.
there. Right, I don't see anybody here.
Well,
Okay.
I'll give them till 7:16,
Hmm.
which is 25 seconds. And then I think we should move on to 93 Monument, and if they appear, we can perhaps go back to them. We can decide at the time.
Okay.
All right, they've got 5 seconds. Darn, okay, I wanted to talk about a slate roof, but moving rapidly forth, let's see, I see Catalano Architect, I see Tom Catalano's name, and I don't know if Carolyn Von Braun is here, but we can move on to 93 Monument Street. And yeah, great, okay, Kurt Von Braun, oh, terrific, thanks. Oh, and there you are too, okay, under Carrie, thanks. All right, so terrific. I'm not sure who's going to present for you, so whoever's going to do so, please go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Carrie Byrne with Catalano Architects, and from Catalano is Tom Catalano and Mariana Wicki also. We have Carrie Von Braun and Kurt Von Braun, the homeowners, and also Wes Worth with Thomas Worth Landscape Associates. Wes just messaged me that he is unable to mute or turn on his video, and he was wondering, I think he just raised his hand. He was wondering if that is something that is admin controlled or if that's fully on his end before we get started.
Hmm. Uh, Kim,
Yeah.
any thoughts?
Yeah, I can help share if he needs help.
And I have all the documents as well. I think just in case there was a question that
Oh,
was
okay.
more for the landscape. So I'm happy to present the bulk of it. And if Wes, I don't know if you want to leave and rejoin or just try to
Yeah,
click the
he's
microphone or the video button, but
Yeah, he's
um,
muted. I just asked him to unmute.
okay.
But Carrie, if you want to help share those documents. that'd be
Yeah,
great.
absolutely. Okay. Let me share and I can talk through this. Okay. Perfect. Well, good evening. We've been working with Carrie and Kurt on the proposed renovation addition to their home at 93 Monument. This is a home classified as a Gothic revival that was originally built in 1825, from what we know. And there's a detached barn behind that was built later in around 1865. Carrie and Kurt have moved in and love the property, embracing the historical character, and looking to make some renovations and updates just to help the functionality and just kind of make it livable with their current day-to-day lifestyle. So we've been looking at ways to embrace the character, be very sympathetic to it, and help update for their uses today. So just to, this is the site plan that was submitted, just to kind of orient you to the property. This is Monument Street on the right hand right here. I'm sorry, 93 Monument. And so this is the public way here that we have been looking at what is visible. So we have the front of the home, the driveway to the north of it that extends to the detached barn garage behind. So as we'll explain, I'll explain the bulk of the architectural work, and Wes, if he's able, can also speak to some of the landscape work that we are proposing along the front of the property and wrapping around. So this is the existing condition where you see the main home and then the detached barn behind. This is the proposed plan, and what we are looking to do is make some modifications to the first floor with the kitchen and kind of side entry space. And what we're looking to do is add a connector from the house to the barn to just help with these New England winters and as a usable garage space, and just make it easier for Carrie and Kurt day to day with the connector to the house. Along with that, we are looking to replace some windows and trim and also make some landscape updates with landscape improvements to the backyard area that are partially visible from the street. So in terms of considering materials and other. So I will share, this is the document that we submitted with more of the architectural information. So this is the front of the home on Monument Street. As we step around, these are photos of the existing home as it is today. Carrie and Kurt have made updates that they came before the board here with roofing shingle updates that were approved. So they have moved forward with that. This is the view down the driveway where there's an existing door that we are looking to replace with a window and add the connector between the house and the garage right back here. This is a close-up view of that right here. We have, these are just existing exterior elevations of the home. Again, this is the view head-on from the street. This is the partial view as you were to walk down the driveway, just to get a better understanding of where we are adding the connector between, proposing to add the connector between the house and the garage. The opposite view and the rear. So I can show you our proposed. Again, this is the view from Monument Street, looking down the driveway. This is the garage barn that we are looking to update, and keeping in the style. We are looking to have the kind of carriage style garage doors with the hay bale loft door, and replacing the siding on the front of the garage with vertical board siding in keeping with the style of the existing structure, but just looking to update the to update. It's not in good condition right now, so we're looking to update that, keeping in style with the home as well as the connector here, and updating to keep in style with the home, but also acknowledge that it is secondary to the main structure. Keeping in style with the paneling and the trim and the windows and the other elements. On the south side of the home, again, I don't know that the connector is fully visible from the public way on this side of the home. This is the kitchen right here at the back of the home, which I think would have a partial view. This currently has windows that we are looking to replace with a door just to provide access to the backyard here. And with the stone and the doors here that we're proposing, I have some material images as well, but this is one change where we're just, again, looking to keep in style with home on this south side here with this change. The dotted line indicates the area where we're looking to make the change.
Excuse me, Carrie,
Yeah.
is there a chance that that's visible at all from Monument Street? Is there-
This part of the house is wider, and so this projects out a bit. It would be like this kind of peekaboo view, like back there,
From Monument, right? Because there's
from
not
Monument.
no private side roads on that. Because if it's not visible, it's not in our, in our purview.
I totally get it. I guess I know trees are not considered a permanent,
Right.
barrier. So I think it would be if you could kind of get a glimpse past this bay window.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thanks.
And other than that, we have materials for the connector. We're looking to match the same roofing that was already installed on the home. And we are looking to match in kind with the paint and the trim, similar style. We have the true divided light windows. We are proposing the Anderson A series, looking to match the existing colors of the home. And we are looking to match the trim detailing on the window on the top of the garage, and looking to have the copper gutters and downspouts at the connector as well. The other aspect is the lighting, and we have the dark sky compliant lighting that we are proposing here. We have a combination of 3 different types of light fixtures. We have recessed light fixtures under this new proposed side entry. We have a wall sconce at select locations at the front and side of the home, and then we have light fixtures over the garage doors. These are dark sky compliant. We have our recessed fixture. We have our wall mounted sconce that is the dark sky certified. And then we also have our fixture over the garage doors as well, also dark sky compliant. I'm happy to take any questions on any of the architecture. I could also share for Wes to talk more about the landscape as well.
Commissioners, do you want to go ahead to the landscaping, or do you want to first ask any questions about what we just saw?
I would suggest we should see the entire package.
I agree.
Okay.
Hi, this is Wes. Carrie, can you put up the historic, the 8-page historic? Yeah, there we go.
Yep.
Okay, so I'll very briefly go through this. This is the front view of the house from the street. As you can see, old brick walk and a privet hedge and lawn in the front. Next slide. This is an oblique view, and you can see a stone retaining wall along the driveway and some stairs. You can continue. This is the rear of the house, most of which is not visible. I just included it for informational purposes. Just so you better understand our plan, you can see there's a wooden deck that is at the first floor level, and it hovers about 6 to 7 feet above the actual grade. Part of what we're trying to do is stitch the first floor of the house with the landscape in the back, and you'll see how that see how we managed to do that as we proceed post design. Next slide. This is in the. Pardon me, did someone say something?
I think
Somebody needs to mute.
Yeah, somebody needs to mute.
This is in the rear of the yard and is actually not relevant. This is a conservation issue. Next. Also rear of the yard, there are some wetlands back there, which is why I put in the slide. At the lowest part of this slide, there's some wetlands. I think it's a peripheral issue to this hearing, but just so you know that. And then next. These are very interesting historic drawings of the house, which show vine-covered front porch. They also show beautiful elm trees on the street, what look like elm, and then it also shows an old-style 3-rail fence. Next.
Can we read the gossip?
Yeah. And there's actually a photograph. If you could zoom in to that last picture, it's quite a bit smaller. There you go. So there's a photograph of the same. And this I believe does not have the fence. It's just of another time period, but it just shows the character and the quality of the house, which by the way is quite similar to what now. Okay, and now if we could go to the plan. Okay, so with an emphasis on the front yard, because this is the area that is most visible. Excellent. Okay, so what we're proposing, as you can see, Monument Street is running right where the title block is, north-south on this plan. Yeah, exactly. We're proposing to replace the brick walk with large historic bluestone slabs, and then create a perpendicular leg of that walk, which goes to the driveway. And to keep the existing stairs there. In addition to that, we're proposing a new fence, and the fence and wall and service gate along Monument Street. So why don't we start at the bottom of the corner of the property? So right there's a 6-foot service gate, which is actually the only way that a lawnmower or any kind of riding vehicle can get to the backyard. So it's a necessary thing that we need to provide in order to do any mowing or anything back in the back. Just because of the nature of the site, there's no other access. After that, we're proposing a very short segment of a stone wall. It's approximately 12 feet right there. And then in line with the house, or more or less like a projection of the house, a historic type fence, which has a granite base and a wooden top. And then in the middle of the gate, we're proposing a wrought iron arbor. We have a section that will show all of this, that you'll walk under, which will hold a lantern. And then that fence, that granite base and fence will continue along the front of the house and then take a 90-degree turn and go along the driveway. The entire area in front of the house will be converted from lawn to native perennial and ground cover plants and some kind of, perhaps some sort of flowering lawn substitute. And there will be a restoration of the hedge along the what is the lower property line on this plan. In addition to what I just described, we're proposing a 6-foot-high sound fence on the side property line, and I have a elevation of that, and that will run. And the point of that is to interfere with some of the road sound that is coming off Monument Street. So that will just stop at the corner and won't continue past the corner. So the front is more or less open and low at approximately 3 to 4 foot height, but this sound fence is 6 foot high and runs along the property line. I think that is really, one more thing, there's this curvilinear walkway, which extends right there, which extends from the bluestone walkway. It's would most likely be made from schist stone, which is a natural local stone in a kind of stepping stone fashion, so there'd be space between the joints. And then while we're at it, why don't we zoom back to the terrace? Or just slide back to the terrace. Yes. So there, instead of having the deck, what we're proposing is raising the grade about half of the way up to that 6 foot high first floor and putting a stone terrace on the raised grade with sloped banks. And you can see the set of stairs that flow off of that to the rear yard. So essentially you'll come out of the kitchen onto a little landing, which was visible in the architect's drawing. You'll go down some stairs towards the back terrace and then onto this terrace. The terrace is set away from the house by 4 or 5 feet, so it will be embedded in planting, and I really think it will be virtually impossible to see from the street, but that is essentially the configuration. And we think that it'll be a lot more natural. It will have a feeling of earth. It'll feel more grounded. It will be a much better landscape experience. Instead of hovering above the landscape, it's nested in the landscape. Okay, and if we could go on to the elevation. Okay, so here's a frontal elevation of the historic part of the house. And here we can see that sequence that I described when I first started. From the left of this drawing, you'll see a large pier, which is on the property corner. That pier is holding the sound fence, which is disappearing away from us, so you can't see it, but running on the side property line. Then there's a service gate, which is approximately 3 feet high, a wooden gate. Then a stone wall, and then the granite base and granite pier start. They're only piers marking the ends and the gate. And then there's a granite base, which is just 6 inches high, like a curb, more or less. And on top of that curb is the fence. And the fence is it's a double picket wooden fence with alternating height pickets. It's a very common design that exists in town and all over historic environments. And then if you can zoom into that center feature, you'll see the 2 granite gate posts and a wrought iron arch with a lantern. And then additionally, if you look past the fence, you'll see on the corner of each porch, or on the edge of each porch, you'll see a lattice, a very simple wooden lattice that is meant to allow a vine growth to come up the side of the house and cover the front of the house to emulate some of that greenery that was in the historic photos. Okay, can you please go to another elevation?
Like the side.
Yes, exactly. So this is really the same fence that's along the front, turns and makes a short run along the side yard. And then there's that second entrance from the driveway that comes in, which is essentially already there. But the stone wall that exists there will be taken out, and this granite curb with the wooden fence and granite posts will be placed on top. Where the brown bar is where that existing stone wall will remain. And that's a very shallow plant bed in front of the house. So this is more or less what you'll see from Monument Street as you come in, if you're traveling towards Concord Center. Next. And then this shows the elevation of the walkout from the kitchen living room, which looks like a double door onto that raised porch. And then that is a wooden porch. And there's actually basement access underneath that. And then you'll go down some stairs onto this stone terrace. And you could see, I didn't really render the plants in there, but I did it very lightly. But that whole slope bank, which is what you see from the elevation of the terrace down to the proposed grade, will be planted with quite a few plants. So you really won't see that. There'll be privacy. It will be embedded in plants. And that is, again, hardly visible from the street, but we are just presenting it to complete the, yes. And I think that, is there another slide there?
Just with the fence details, but yeah.
Detail of the sound fence. We've used this fence in a number of historic properties, one in Weston, one in Needham. It's kind of using 1x various dimension boards, but very heavy boards. We use black locust in another project, like clapboards, and literally setting a post and then putting these boards overlapping each other. So it creates a fairly good sound barrier because it has some mass and weight, and it's not painted. It's a very kind of plain looking, historic looking fence, something like you might have seen, built in the past. It's kind of a timeless look, and there it is in it. So it really does sort of hold the sound at bay as best as possible. And then why don't we go to the materials document and try to quickly go through this. Okay, page 2. There's a key there, but we don't need the key. These are large bluestone slabs, which show the character of what we're proposing on the front walks. It's natural clef. This is from a yard where they sell historic pieces, so we would use something like this for the front. Just another image of the same. Oh, there is a front stoop that steps up onto the porch, and we would replace the one that's there, which I believe is a little small, with something a little larger. Also from of historic character, so it really looks old and weathered. The schist stone, the stepping stones that I'm talking about, are visible here. This is another project of ours, but it shows the quality and character of the stone and the way that it's possible to grow little plant ground covers in between the interstices of the stone and the joints. It really makes a nice, soft, beautiful feeling. That's another example of the same stone without any of the plants. This is a much more formal expression than what we're proposing, but it does show the type of, at least the relationships of the parts. It shows piers, granite piers. We're not having granite piers on irregular intervals. We're only putting them at the ends runs and having wood in between. And this also shows a granite base. So essentially the granite cradles the wood and holds the wood in the middle. This is a much more elaborate, let's see what we got here. Oh, that is something we call an arras edge, and we're proposing that on the granite piers. It's a way that stone piers, rough or split stone hewn piers, were articulated by carving the edges. So essentially, even if the pier was irregular, by carving the edge, which is about, usually we do about 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches on each corner. What it does is it creates a very regular panel, and then the irregularities of the stone are in the sort of body of the face. It's a very nice historic detail. So we intend on using something like that. Why don't we go down to the iron? There we go. Now this is from another project of ours. It's way more elaborate than what is appropriate here, but it's essentially the same idea of having an arch with a simple lantern in what we're proposing. This is way over the top complicated. We have a very, very simple, just simple arch with a chain and a hanging lantern. Continue. This is the style of the lantern that we're considering, and it would be made, custom made, and it would be dark sky compliant because we would have the light bulb raised into the hood. It's all copper, handmade. And then we are proposing some lights on the side walk, embedded in the granite piers on the side entry to the front door. And we would use these little bronze lights which mount flush on the stone and have a very soft and natural looking light. Those are the specifications for the light. And then we're also proposing something called a border light, which is a path light, which you can see there, I believe. Yes, which is it's a copper stem with a little hooded covered light. So that would be along the path systems to the front door. And then there's an image of the sound fence. This particular one is on a stone base. What we're proposing is not on a stone base, but that shows the character of the sound fence. Continue if there's any more.
That is the last one.
So I think that summarizes what we're doing. I can get into planting more, but I think that that's the hardscape. I mean, we would plant along the front, behind this fence. It's a good sun exposure. We have some trees noted on the plan, and a mixture, probably a softer and more beautiful hedge than the privet. We would err on the side of all native plants where possible, perhaps with a few exceptions. And we definitely would advocate for having less lawn and more perennial ground covers, shrubs, and trees. I think that's it.
Okay, thank you, Wesley and Carrie. That was very thorough and very easy to follow. So there's a lot to consider, and I'll open it up to the commission for comment, questions.
Hey, it's Bill. Do you want to mix landscape, hardscape with architectural, or you want to have it in two sections? How do you want us to?
All right, why don't we, excuse me, why don't we
That
start with,
wasn't a tacit suggestion. I'm just asking.
no, it's good. Why do you have comments in both sections? I guess.
I suspect collectively we have comments in both sections.
Hopefully.
Let's break it down. Let's do architectural first. Dennis?
I'd need to take a closer look, but I've always been impressed with the barn there that, which is actually, frankly, I think a carriage house. I think it was built for a carriage and a horse. But I have to take a closer look, but the siding seems like it's original or the original style from the 1860s. Are you keeping the exact same siding that's there when you redo that barn, the flat board siding?
We are. Here I can share this again.
But Dennis, do you mean the exact same style or in fact reusing?
Well, it would be great if they could reuse what's there, but I'm sure it's not in terribly great condition all throughout. But the look of the very idea of having a board siding like that.
Dimensions.
We are, yes. Apologies, let me just share this, we can look at it. The photos that we have here. So the existing, so we are keeping the flatboard siding. It's just the existing that is here. It's cupping a lot, and it's exposing kind of the ends to getting, water into it. And so we are looking to keep the character while, just improving the actual, just the install and the material, but, keeping the style that is there with the flush boards. Mm-hmm.
Will it be natural wood? It's not composite material?
Correct.
It'll be the same.
I guess while we're talking about that, it would be a shame to lose that surface texture. I appreciate you don't want it cupping to the extent you get water intrusion, but I don't know if there's any way to spec that so that it's not a perfectly flat surface. That gives some very interesting visual character to it.
We can look at that. I think one of the challenges is what you're seeing has many layers of paint on it.
Sure,
it's crazed off and cracked and peeled. So you have a lot of the texture is actually from the failure of the paint. So we would do our best. We could look at a rough sawn or maybe a partially rough sawn. We need to be able to paint it to preserve the new material.
So continuing, the barn itself will not, other than the doors, will not significantly change or no changes. For instance, the hayloft door is, you're keeping the original door that's there, correct?
We are looking to keep the door placement and the size of the door, but just improve it. Again, it's a very kind of patched together. Carrie and Kurt, appreciate the door and want to almost embrace it slightly more and just trim it out in a way that would be appropriate for the carriage house. But so keep it and replace in kind. But it's historical, but it's slightly haphazard with just the way that existing door that is there right now.
And unfortunately, the existing door has no flashing or weather stripping, and it's going to be very difficult to make the second floor usable from a weather resistance point of view unless we rebuild it with a new door in a similar style.
Will you retain that hardware?
If we can, sure.
The hinges,
yeah, if we can, absolutely.
I think it's probably.
I would also. I just one last question. I'm not sure the framing or the casing of that door is appropriate. I understand you need to weather strip it. You might need a cap on it, but does it need to be fully framed?
Not necessarily. But the issue then is if we don't put a casing on it, it's really not best practice to have the door be in the exact same plane as the gable as it is now, because there's nothing to protect the end grain of the door. So we either need to put the door in a different plane, or we need some bit of trim to protect the edge of the boards on the door.
Let me explore that further. That door has probably been there since 1860, 65. And seems to, and I gather it's not in horrible condition. And I guess the major question is, are you redoing the interior of the building in order to make it like an office or usable spaces?
Not at the moment. I think we're
Not in this phase, but we do, ideally, we'd like the potential to make the second floor weather tight, which it is
Sure.
not right now.
But that could be done from the inside on that door. I mean, you could certainly keep the door like it is, but to accomplish what you want on the inside.
Yeah, and we could, if we kept it in the same plane, we would still want to put a little metal cap, flashing cap over the top of the door to protect the entrance, especially if we have to go to new material. We're not confident that the new material will be as long lasting as the original material, and I'm very concerned about edge grain water exposure.
So, well, I think the question is whether that needs to be an operating door. I can't imagine you're going to be switching hay in, and if it doesn't have to be an operating door, then that makes it an awful lot easier to weatherproof it on the inside while maintaining the look on the outside.
Absolutely.
I don't want to speak for Dennis, but I think what he's been getting at is probably the overriding consensus for commissioners would be to maintain as much of the integrity and original material on that facade as possible, because it certainly has character.
Sure, and that's a question for Kurt and Carrie. If we don't need to keep the door operable, it's be much easier to facilitate the weather tightness and use the original material if we can.
Right, it would be a shame, I think, to lose the design element of it, sacrificed to making it work if it doesn't have to work.
I wanted to also talk about the garage doors. In one of the photographs you had, wasn't there a picture of what the garage doors look like? I mean, obviously what's there now isn't original, but don't you have an original photo of what the garage doors or the stable carriage house doors look like?
There you go.
There was a single man door, it looks like, right? At one
So there
point.
was no door in the front.
Oh, the entrance must have been on the side.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And we could not find out when the change was made to add the sliding doors to the Monument Street side.
Is the inside of the building finished currently?
No.
So theoretically, you could take a look at the existing side wall on the inside and see if there's any ghost of what was there, if there had been a door on that side. Little bit of detective work.
If I may, I would again, there's no proof of this, but I believe that this house, where the property line or the edge of driveway is, there may have been a side access from the barn, which is now someone else's property.
Yeah.
I would suspect that's how this was set up and designed. So that is no longer an option.
Do you mind showing the proposed photos of the proposed elevation showing the new doors?
Sure. Right here.
Are these doors smaller than the existing doors? They look like they're narrower.
Yeah.
Yes, they are.
They are.
And these are
And they're-
overhead doors, right? They're sort of faux doors on the front, and they open up like contemporary garage doors, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
I'd leave
You
it
mean
to
as an overhead?
I'm sorry.
How do they swing open, or are they going up?
They're intended to be overhead.
Okay,
Mhm.
so there'd be breaks across here for the fold.
Correct.
And they have windows too.
Correct.
If I may make a quick comment, I think that this barn doesn't look at all as it looked in 1853 or whenever the house was built. And there's no question that this structure has evolved. the only problem that I see, and I think that that's where we as a commission have to make a decision whether in which direction are we going to go, is that in the continuity of the evolution of things, the transition that it's being proposed right now is actually quite large. You see, it changes substantially the whole character of the structure, and I think that that's the reason that Dennis and Bill are expressing some, what I interpreted as some reservations, because the fact that you're going to have two garage doors with their lights on the top, etc., changes completely the character of this kind of humble structure as it was initially conceived. So from my perspective, we have to either accept that this structure is going to evolve as this whole house is evolving, because now we're going to have a connector between the main house and this barn, etc., or whether we should keep it preserved as it was originally. And I think that's a decision we're going to have to make.
Well, maybe if I could decompose that a little bit, Luis, I think if we could go to the old doors, the existing elevation.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those doors look like they were plunked on in 1958.
Right.
And it just strikes me as that they're ahistoric, and the pediment above it is ahistoric. I guess in my view is that the smaller doors look better than the 1958 doors, if I could call them that, with the fake pediment trying to emulate the window above it. I agree that the lights are inappropriate above those doors for a rustic structure, and I love that word, rustic. And I think the design that we approve ought to retain that rusticity. Dennis's starting comment about that, retaining the hay door as is. But the door, to me, the new doors look better than these doors. The only question I'm mulling is whether the windows detract from the rusticity or not. If I could, that's probably not a word.
Bill, I would agree with you. I think the windows I find bothersome. I think you'd be better off with very plain doors and not have the windows. It sort of gussies it up too much.
Sure.
I agree, and I think it also doesn't communicate with the house. I mean,
House has gorgeous windows. I mean, the windows in that house are fabulous.
Oh, they're unbelievable.
And
Yes.
they may be the coolest ones in town.
This is my second favorite house in Concord.
Kristen, do you have more comments?
I think the garage, as seen in this image, it looks very generic in
Mhm.
response to the sweetness of the architecture, the
Mhm.
Gothic revival, and that's it.
Anyone else? for architecture?
I was gonna move to the house,
Let's.
if that's okay.
Mhm.
And I agree with all the comments on the barn. I think it's or the whatever we're calling this carriage house is this is in my mind, this whole house and complex is a question of, you know, how little can you do? This is such a charming little cottage. It's one of the gems of Concord, and so I agree with the comments on the carriage house, including the windows and the lights and simplifying. I'd also agree with Bill's comment that this is the nature of the change, and these are much better doors than what's there now. My comment on the architecture is I think we need to visit the site because I can't quite tell what's visible from the street. And but certainly the architecture is tucked around the back and around the corner. My comment on the could we see the other elevation on the, I guess this is south side.
Yep, absolutely. This is right here, yeah.
And as I understand it, that whole terrace is it's a raised terrace, right? It's fill coming in 3 or 4 feet of fill. Am I right about that?
That's correct.
Yeah. So the architecture, this is a lovely little gem of a house with a mansard roof, quirky mansard roof, and a kind of a quirky carriage house. And whether this is visible or not, and I have a sense that some of this probably is visible. I think probably both sides are visible obliquely from Monument Street, is what can be done so that every bit of architecture that's put on this house has a uniqueness and specialness that fits this house without, and I'm not going to provide any answers to that. That's just my question. There's just kind of a nondescript uniformity to what's being proposed. I totally understand why it's functional and light and all that, but that would be my challenge to one of, again, repeating myself here, that one of the true gems of Concord is how can this architecture be special? I don't personally have a problem with the massing and what's being done in the raised terrace. So that's just my a general comment is, the sliding doors, the glass French doors, the windows just are not inspiring to me the way so many other little details are in this house. And maybe I'll hold my comments because I have a lot more comments on the landscape stuff, but I'll stop there on the house. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
Would it be possible to show the proposed and existing south elevation at the same time? Is that feasible technically?
Yeah, let me just duplicate the file and I'll open side by side. Sorry, you said south?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yep.
And then
Yeah.
Well done.
Spoke too soon.
There we go.
Great. Thank you.
Great, great.
Stare at that for a while. So it's a fairly substantial extension out the back. Is it 20 feet?
It overlaps. It's fairly narrow, but in terms of length, it does overlap both buildings just in order to get kind of the entry into the carriage house and then the back entry into the house here.
So it's 20 feet, give or take?
Yes, I would say so. I can get you an exact number.
I guess I share some of Tim's views of this. The one that strikes me most inappropriate is the sliding door on the porch.
Okay.
It doesn't sit right next to that bay window on the right, that classic Gothic Revival bay window, and somehow it's just featureless. The windows on the connector are less jarring to me than that door is.
Actually, I find the windows more jarring.
Mm.
They're modern. They're not historically correct to Gothic Revival.
May I interject a question?
Mhm.
We have 3 different periods of building here. So only the part on Monument Street is Gothic Revival. The mansard, which is a later addition, is pretty far from Gothic Revival and has honestly few redeeming architectural qualities, perhaps even less than the barn. So we're trying to use the connector. And if you look at the plan, the footprint, it's quite de minimis, but we're trying to have a sort of nondescript connector, style connector to be and we want that to be subservient to the other architecture, with the building on Monument Street being the most important and the barn perhaps second in level of importance, and the mansard addition, which is frankly not very sympathetic to the original building, being the least important. And if you look at the sort of haphazard composition of the existing addition with the 3-part window not on center with the dormer above, I think what we've done, we've kind of smooth out the bad parts of that design and made it subservient to the important part of the building in the front. I would hate to do too many things that are going to call a lot of attention to this part of the building because it's not an important part of the building compared to the original structure and fabric of the Monument Street side.
Just to give a little context, those 3 windows that are now in the kitchen, I was on the commission, we approved those about 10 years ago. So those are pretty new. I think when I look at this, I'm thinking that you have all that glass on the connector. That's only a connector, right? It's just a passage between the barn and the house, correct?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
So if you take a look at traditional connectors, and the idea of connecting barns and houses in New England is a fairly standard thing, you would probably have siding that is like the house, but with small windows in it, or maybe larger windows in it, but they would be nothing other than give some light in the passage. And I think you need to go back and look at how barns and houses were connected in the 19th century to get a pattern. What you have there is totally contemporary. And if you don't need the light for a living space, I don't understand why you need so many windows.
Well, it also, if I may, it fronts the garden. So if that connector were not just a tunnel, and it were actually a porch or something that's more open, it frames the garden, and it actually creates a very beautiful space when you walk along the connector to experience the landscape. And actually the way the house is designed from the living space of the main house, which is the mansard portion, what this will actually do is kind of create this sort of ring of experience around the garden space.
I think that's probably true, but we're looking at it from having a connector that's in keeping with historic precedents, and you know, I'm sympathetic to your viewpoint, but I don't think it's really ours, frankly.
Did we see the
Still remains a passageway. So, I mean, I can understand why, you know, you're talking about the view to the new landscaping, but it's still in passing. And so we have to look at it differently on the HDC.
And how wide is that corridor?
It's about 5 feet wide. I can show you a.
Can we see the plan of it? I think that would help everyone.
Yep.
Thank you.
So this is the plan right here. So there is a grade change that we are navigating between. The house is raised up several steps from the level of the carriage house. So you have your main house here, and then you're progressing down this passageway, down steps that give you both access to the driveway side as well as the rear yard, and then access into the carriage house.
I think this is where a site visit because that wall is set in the north-south direction, quite far north from the corner of the house, we have to go there and see just how visible that glass wall is.
Yeah. If you look at
I think,
sorry to interrupt. If you look at the landscape plan, you can see that it is quite embedded and very difficult to see, certainly from the bounds of this property. And there are very large arborvitae trees along that edge. So I don't think, I know the tree is not a permanent fixture, but I don't think it's visible from the street in an easy way at all.
yeah, and then, I'm sorry, is it Carrie? Carrie, could you go back to that proposed south elevation again?
Sure.
Thank you. I just want to make another point of this is the existing, if you look at the existing south elevation of the carriage house, again, this is a question of visibility from Monument, but it's a very charming, simple elevation. It's quite lovely. I actually like what you're doing landscape and building up that terrace, and I think it's kind of solving a bunch of ramshackle problems of grade, and I don't disagree with the comment about the ranking of architecture of, the front house being the first, the carriage the second, and the sort of funny mansard roof being the third. But I guess my point is there's half of that carriage house is being overlapped by the link, and I'm just wondering if that is that really necessary? It's not our purview to talk about insides and how it all works, but if it was shorter and only overlapped a good door's worth, is that a possibility?
15
Then it
feet.
would be less visible from the street because you'd pull a corner to the east and less linkage and more barn, more that very nice simple elevation exposed.
While we're looking at this, could you slide the proposed down half an inch or so, please? Is that existing carriage house south elevation lower windows? Are those disappearing because of the fill?
I think the right one is, right? Oh, the lower ones. Yeah, good
Lower
question.
ones.
They are not, because we're actually holding the fill off of the carriage house.
Okay, so the carriage house, that elevation doesn't change at all.
That's correct.
Thank you.
This portion will be enclosed, but not this one down here.
Understand. Yeah, okay.
I've got some comments about or questions about the going to the front of the house with regards to the fencing. If we could pull that up. Specifically so the sound wall is 6 feet tall.
Yes.
Do you see that somewhere?
You don't see it from on the frontal elevation. It's only on the sideline. So if you are looking at that elevation on that's visible now, the stone pier, which is on the property corner right there, the fence, the proposed sound fence will terminate into that, and it would be going away from us, so we wouldn't be able to see it in this elevation.
So that's a 6-foot high granite piece?
No. Oh, yes. Yes.
Or more.
No, only 6.
Oh, okay.
Only 6.
Don't you need variance over 5 feet for fencing in Concord?
I believe it's 6.
6. Used to be 5.
How long is the sound fence?
It is 50 feet. It goes back just to more or less to the extent of the historic of the Gothic part of the house.
Okay. 6 foot.
So in an irony, it blocks the view of the house.
Well, it blocks the view of the connector potentially.
And the existing house.
Yeah.
And then moving toward right in front of the facade proper, the fencing between the granite piers is wood.
Yes.
It's the variegated, well, those aren't pickets. What are they called?
Yeah, they're pickets, or I call them pickets. So they're alternating height pickets, tall, short, and there are 3 rails: a bottom rail, a mid rail, and a top rail.
Which the alternating heights, and definitely educate me here, is usually a style I more typically see with colonial into federal period houses, early federal. I associate it less commonly with Gothic style houses. Are there any examples that you've seen that inspired this that I could know about?
I can't. I can do some research and try to point some out. I mean, what I was responding to is the level of detail that you see on some of the window gable ends, and also the large gable end houses. This very beautiful leaf carved detail out of the wood, and the sort of refinement and the intricacy and the scale of that detail seemed to resonate with the scale and the intricacy of this fence. It felt like a kind of compatible rhythm. So I was really responding to it on a very intuitive, from an intuitive place. Additionally, with the iron arch at the top of the arch where the two pieces meet, there could be a leaf detail, which is very common in sort of historic iron, that would also connect with the patterning and the wooden carve outs on the window. So that's really the origin of the texture and the texture from my perspective.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've definitely seen kind of Gothic revival fences that have quatrefoil or scallop balusters, or to that point that you're talking about. But around Concord, typically, we have a number of fences in various districts. I'm not sure how close in proximity to this house that are typically, not exclusively, in front of more houses, say from like 1780 to 1820. So I was just that caught my attention, and I'm trying to figure out if it competes a little bit with the beauty of the facade. So that's just a little concern.
You have a fence in a photograph, right? You already have a model for a fence that was used here, correct?
We do.
Can we take a look at that?
Sure. It looks to me like a split rail.
Yep.
This one?
There.
There you go.
Right, and that really fits in beautifully with a country cottage. I find what's there now, what you're proposing, is way too fussy.
Well,
I think putting this back would be, and there's this wonderful little detail on the gate here, which is sort of a very country detail, which is lovely. Those may even be stone piers. They could be stone piers, but that's a much simpler fence design. And you're thinking of putting the arbor back, which I think will be charming. I have to say that you've done a beautiful job on this house. Has been beautifully maintained so far, and the roof is beautiful too. But I just think that whole fence and the arch and the whole bit is just way too fussy.
Clearly you put in a lot of work on the fence, and it's carefully crafted, but I'd have to agree. And it appears to me like a very substantial fence for a very large Victorian house. And actually, this is just kind of a wood country cottage. And somebody correct me if I'm wrong, Kate was quoting dates, but I don't think this kind of ornate, highly crafted granite was being put in front of 1825 Gothic revival cottages. I think this is really at a later date that this kind of ornateness came along, and it's a lot of fence for a lovely simple cottage, and it kind of I really appreciate the effort, but really question just what Dennis said. It's just a lot of fence and a lot of detail.
My fear is that it would detract or at least compete with the current decoration of the facade and its simplicity. The arch is beautiful and really lovely, and perhaps there might be a place for it in the back. I'm not sure.
I just think there's no historic context for that in Concord. I can't recall seeing ever.
No. The only arch I can think of is the one that went up without approval. And even that's temporary in front of the library.
I also find the stone wall disturbs the flow. Not sure why it's stone. The gate I perfectly understand, but the stone wall and the massing of those stone pillars just seem inappropriate to me.
Well, both. I mean, perhaps when you look at this in isolation, that there are stone walls exactly like this on both neighboring properties adjacent to this, as well as the property across the street.
They're not exactly like this.
And those are different period houses also.
This is true.
If
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
like,
I'm sorry. I took a look up and down the street specifically to see what the fencing was like. And there are a couple of instances of bits of granite, but certainly nothing that is like this in the immediate area.
Well, actually, the
So-
house directly across the street is a fence that is almost identical to this. It has stone piers, it has a granite base, and it has wood alternating pickets. And it's visible directly across the street.
I'll stand corrected then. It didn't pop out to me.
It is a colonial era house, I
That-
think, Virgin era house.
yeah.
That's,
I was just thumbing through my book on A.J. Downing's country houses that were all Gothic revival, and I didn't see a single one with fencing in front. And I mean, if you're curious, that's actually a good reference. He designed Gothic revival houses,
mm,
and this looks like one of his plates.
well, I think we should plan on a site visit if that's acceptable to the homeowners and the design team. And that would be ideally before the next meeting, so the morning of the next meeting. Is that something that you'd be able to do? Kim, when is our next meeting?
Our next meeting is February 12th. So we could do that the morning
February-
of.
So we would be there at 8 a.m. and it's always incredibly helpful. And we could review all this as well in person and get a sense of context. And then we would revisit it again that night, as we've done now. So can we put that on the books?
Yes.
Thank you.
Would it be helpful if we architects came to the meeting that morning, or is it something you do just with the commission?
Oh, no, absolutely. All architects,
Any
anyone,
professionals welcome.
anything props, things you want to mark out. Yeah.
Yeah,
That
much
would
of
be
the time, we have the architects and not the homeowners.
It's true, actually, if anyone wants to just take a break, it can be the homeowners.
You could certainly mark the location of the connector with a couple of poles, even if you wanted to, mark to the height that it would be. So you have a better sense of seeing from the street what might be visible.
If you can get anything in the ground, but yeah.
Not this week.
But any kind of indicators that you think would be helpful. And if there are any kind of, it's kind of a little early, but any sort of material samples as well that, you might have by then, or anything like that.
Sure.
Because this meeting's on the public record, so it's okay to do those things. And then you'll be able to come back that evening for another HDC meeting? Yes. On the 12th? Okay, that'd be great. Any public comment? Forgot about that. We're not voting, so. Actually, we have to vote to have a site visit.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, hi, John.
Hi, this is John Battle.
Hello, John.
I'd like to say one quick thing.
Sure.
I applaud the architect, the landscape architect, the board, the commission, the board for pursuing an intriguing little design that doesn't end up defaulting to the vanilla solution. So I applaud you all for making the effort and looking for subtlety around such a wonderful piece in Concord.
Thank you, John Battle.
Oh,
Nice to hear from you. Okay, can someone make a motion to continue after next month's site visit?
I make a motion that we continue 93 Monument Street to the next meeting.
Second,
After a site visit.
After a site visit.
second,
Second.
all in favor to vote. Let's see, Tim,
Aye.
Walter,
Aye.
Catherine. You are on mute, Catherine.
Sorry, aye.
Thank you. And Kristen?
I,
And I am an aye. So, okay, that's, we can look forward to that on February 12th. Thank you very much, Von Brown.
A very thorough package.
Yes, really was great. Okay, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
All right, moving on to 41 Wood Street, I believe. I don't have my agenda in front of me.
Mhm.
Is that correct? Are they? Okay. We have not heard from Kim, have we, from 393 Main Street? They've not popped up.
No, I haven't seen anything.
Okay, I hadn't either. Okay.
Yep.
All right, so continued public hearing, 41 Wood Street, to discuss the fenestration proposal that we continued till now.
Yep.
So I think that's the John Battle team, isn't it?
Correct.
Correct.
Bob
Oh, yeah,
Drew from
hi.
Battle Associates and John Battle, which you just heard from.
Yes.
So just to give you a refresher, since we last met, it was early December or late November. This project is a renovation to to the wing of the 41 Wood Street. This is part of the goal. The goal of the project is to make 2 ensuite bedrooms for the kids, and some of this involves some renovations to the windows and window arrangements. So it does incorporate some of your feedback and some additional research on our end in terms of the history of the windows. So what we passed along in December was a couple options, which we'll walk you through in a minute. The other thing we was sent along is we had our contractor and scheduled with our contractor, Platt Builders, who's done a lot of historic work with us and around town and other towns and stuff. Halsey went through the wing and kind of did a little bit of an inventory on the windows. And it's a little, if you saw from the document we sent along, it's a little bit of a mishmash. So the light blue windows are from the 20th century, likely 1950s. And the windows and the yellow ones that are marked, the ones that are marked in the yellow highlight are from 19th century windows. You know, the blue ones have 7/8 inch mutton bars. There's a little bit of a narrative. I don't know if you have a chance to read this. I can go through it more carefully if you'd like, but it's a little bit of a more not consistent in what's been there and what's been tweaked and revised and moved around all the time over the life of the building. But since we last met with you, we came up with a couple of options which we sent along beforehand. Walk you through them real quick. Option A, let's see. Option A, all A windows remain in place. 2B windows are to be replaced in kind and matching all the other, matching the 7/8 inch, matching the windows on this side, which is save 7/8 inch SDLs, and on that. We moved them over a little bit to align with the windows of the living room, kind of make that elevation a little more organized. All the other windows on this elevation stay the same. Windows on this side, the gable end, which is kind of where Wood Street and Neshoba kind of, you kind of see it as you kind of start coming down the street. Wood Street side, that stays all the same. That's option A. Option B, this is just a fallback option. You always have a backup to the backup. No changes to windows. Which is not, if you don't like the other 2 options, we have kind of like a fallback if we need to. The last option we have is option C, which is kind of like the most involved option. A windows are to remain in place, which is mostly contained to the Wood Street side. B windows are to be replaced in its spot, and the C windows are kind of being replaced and matching what's on that building, but a little more organized on this elevation. Where if you look at the, I go back to the existing, compare and contrast. If you see there's a couple double hung windows here, the spacing's a little different. We kind of made it a little more organized, a little more organized, and it worked well with the plan on the inside. Obviously, you look at the outside and inside as you're doing this. And it makes the alignment with the living room below. It gets rid of the 2 double windows here, which is Not a lot on this wing of the house.
Mhm,
We actually keep these windows. That's not part of this project. It's really the second floor.
mhm.
So those are the two main options. One's a very minimum option, which is mainly just this back bedroom. The more invasive option or more involved option is kind of just revising these windows in terms of replacing some in the spot and can tweak to a little bit of the arrangement. Part of your feedback from the last time, it was to look at how this house, what this house looked like before. Unfortunately, it's always fun to go through, and part of my job is to go through and go look through how houses lived. It was fun going through Concord Art and the house you saw we did on Monument Street. But which really all the photography we have is mainly from the Wood Street side, not from the Wauchoba side, which would be would be more informative. This is from the town library, which was a good photo. We also kind of went through. Sorry guys, bear with me when I let up. Sorry. This is from the historic register, and obviously there's a couple old photos again for the Wood Street side. It would be nice to see all the windows, but they at the time of the photo, brushing away. And it's always nice to see the history of who owned it, how that was used, how it lived. But it wasn't too many photos of that wing on file we could find. But that's kind of the history we've had. We kind of came up with a couple options to present in front of you. Again, as mentioned before, it's kind of nice to go through the history and trying to respect the wing and complement what's been done to date. So any questions you guys have, happy to discuss further.
And Bob, let's just be clear to sort of articulate which is our preferred.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry guys.
The
Sorry.
plan and the elevation which shows them which is our preferred solution.
If we had
and
a
explain
vote,
why, please.
I'm sorry guys. If we had a vote, which we don't, but it's our preferred option is option C. That kind of organizes this elevation. It also organizes the suites on the inside, which is the goal. Client's goal is to keep the kids in the house as long as they can, which is exterior is kind of cleans up this elevation quite nice. Sorry guys, I should have mentioned that a minute ago.
Well, I no, that's good, but I think that was what was giving us pause initially while we asked for some options, because we actually we're kind of hoping for not too much organization, I think, but.
Okay, yeah, but we have one option where it's not too much organization, one with organization. It's that's why we didn't come with one.
Very clever. So C is builders and clients' preference, and B is the least invasive. Is that right?
A is the least invasive. Sorry, it's a little out of order. It was kind of as we developed this with the client. A is the one where we're just changing two windows and align it with the living room.
Oh, got it. Okay, and then B is the most.
Yeah, C is the most. B is nothing. There's no changes at all.
Okay.
Yeah, the advantage of C, which is it gets rid of the double window, which has been done sometime in the past that I know you all we're not fond of.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And what's the age of that double window? I'm sorry, I didn't commit to memory the color coded chart you did.
Sorry, I didn't mean to give you a pop quiz, but it's 20th century windows. These two windows here.
50s.
Yeah.
So here's a pop quiz. Ready? Is there an option where the double windows, the 1950s double windows, have been ameliorated and all the 19th century windows are intact?
No, you keep the yellow windows, replace the blues.
Yeah, or at least the double.
This piece here, you mean?
Mm-hmm. The area that we were.
So C kind of starts. That's B. Excuse me, one sec.
Because I'm presuming that's probably what would align with something the commission would
so,
be most comfortable with.
I understand what you're saying.
Can I ask a really dumb question? Because I'm getting a little lost here. Sure. Is it just the west elevation we're talking about?
Correct.
We're not modifying it.
No, that's not.
Well, it's in terms of locations.
Road too, yeah.
Yeah, we're option C. So I'll start again. Sorry, I'm sorry, guys. You asked for options before, so I'll start from scratch. Option A, all the windows stay the same. Not touched, not moved.
Wood Street, Neshoba Road, and
Yeah.
You're not,
It
you're
would-
not replacing windows, you're not doing anything.
Those all stay as is.
Okay,
The only two
I got
windows
it.
we're changing is back here behind where the garage is. And it's to kind of make this bedroom a little better. Those windows are replacing kind, but in different locations. Those locations align with the living room windows below it. This all stays the same.
Replacing kind meaning, meaning what?
Matching what's there in terms of like the size and the 6/6, the divider lights, you know, kind of it's to match.
But they'd be new
Marvin
simulated
windows.
divided lights and all that bit.
That's correct.
And the age of the existing windows that we're talking about that are underneath the living room there, they are,
These guys,
yes.
we didn't inventory those. I would assume in terms of the history of the house, because at some point, if you see where my cursor is, where these blue
Mhm.
ones are, that was added onto. You can tell by when I'm in the attic because of the change in the framing.
yeah.
If
So-
educated guess is those are probably 19th century. I'm gonna
So to cut to the quick, you do not know what the age is of the windows. you're
correct,
talking about.
but educated guess would be 19th century from the
That was-
renovation.
but that was with a smile, wasn't that the whole point of what we were asking you last time?
Yeah. That's correct. We didn't inventory the first floor because we didn't. We were more focused on the second. But a great question.
I'm bemused.
So A is you're replacing the
Nothing.
living room windows.
Nothing. No, A is nothing. No changes at all. If you don't like A, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. A is replacing 2 windows and moving them over. B is replacing no windows. So if A and C are you guys don't like, we'll go to B and not, you know, that's no changes in the windows at all. C is the max option where we're kind of rearranging the west elevation and replacing.
Sorry, Robert, maybe it's just after 8:30 for me or something. B, you're not changing any windows at all?
Correct. Nothing. Everything just
So
stays as
A,
is.
you're replacing just 2 living room windows and moving them.
Yeah, moving them from one of the bedrooms.
And B, no windows
Nothing.
change at any
Yeah.
elevation.
If we get denied, we'll go with that option with no windows.
And
are
then
changed.
C, you're changing, you're moving stuff.
Moving stuff. Sorry, it's kind of the evolution of the options we came up with the client. I'm sorry for the confusion.
No, it's okay.
Just trying to understand.
No. And then as C has here, Wood Street, nothing changes. None of these options have anything changing. C option, the 2 big windows on it that faces Neshoba Road will be replaced in its place. And then when the main work is back here. C windows are changing locations. B windows are being replaced in its place.
Okay.
It seems like there are 2 issues. There's an issue of like fenestration and moving windows, and then there's an issue of the windows themselves and should they be preserved or changed.
Right. Okay. Dennis? Any thoughts on this?
Obviously, I like the option to
Window
change the windows.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, what did you say, Dennis? I
I
apologize.
said, obviously, I'd like the option that doesn't change any windows and leaves it just the same. That would be my preference, but I'm not totally objected to some of the other options. The less done, the better.
Mm-hmm.
Noted.
So can I just interject for one moment here?
Sure, John.
Bob, can you please bring up the elevation C? Which is in our effort here it's not an exact rhythmic spacing, but it ended up just being a quiet gathering of windows on the 2nd floor, which seemed like the most subtle way to do a renovation that didn't intrude on the elevation. So that's one of the reasons that we prefer this. It just felt quiet.
Is it possible to see option C elevation juxtaposed with existing? Is that technically possible?
B is existing, right?
Yeah, ready? We keep things simple, so hold on. So that's existing? No.
Yeah, but
Existing?
Is it possible to see them side by side or top and
No,
bottom?
yeah, Bob, the last team could do it.
Yeah, the last team could do it.
Oh, we keep things simple. We're
Back
simple-minded
down.
here. Hold on one second. If you can bear with me for.
Sure.
She
geez.
did it with
I'm on-
everybody watching, just saying,
She
yeah.
had an Apple. I noticed that. So that's an Apple computer. Give me 1 second, guys. I'm sorry. Um,
Repeating myself, but B is the existing elevation, right?
correct. That's correct.
No,
Okay.
Tim.
Hold on, guys.
I guess while you're doing that, I might just venture a view that the end gable window change from 1950s window to something that might be even more historically appropriate.
Come on, computer.
Is there any reason that we're not comfortable with that, Dennis?
Well, if you follow the Secretary of the Interior's rules, as buildings have evolved over time, we try to retain the evolution because it's the history of the building.
Mm-mm.
So technically, we shouldn't favor that sort of change. I would not be averse to it, but do we have any? We have no sort of evidence to show what would actually have been there for taking it back.
No, but they're replacing them same size, same placement. It's just replacing the window. I'm very excited when you say restore a window that was built in 1870. Should I be excited about restoring a window that was installed when I was born?
Well, it's 80 years. It's 80 years from 1870 to the 1950s, and it's what 70 years back to the 1950s. Here, we're all getting older.
Yeah,
1950s.
I'm not averse to it. I
historic.
just
I'm just trying to figure out Bill's age.
I
Actually,
know, me too. I was like, wait a minute.
I just thought I'd try and.
Sorry, guys. We tend to keep things simple. We live by the.
Oh,
keep
that's
it
very
simple,
helpful. Thank you.
Keep it
thank
simple,
you.
stupid option here. So I'm sorry, some of it's CAD, some of it's PDF.
so the bottom one is B,
Exist-
right?
Yeah, the bottom
Existing.
one is B, which is existing. This is our preferred option of C. I can show you the one with the minimal option with it if you like.
Well, if you don't mind, I'd like to stare at this. We've
Yeah,
been
just give us a minute to
back
look
and
at
forth.
Sorry, guys. Go ahead.
Yeah, we just need to take a look.
Now, those two windows on the second floor that are right next to each other, those are probably not original, would you say? 'Cause
No, we wouldn't have missed those after our last discussion.
I don't think we should be talking about what's original at this point. We should be referencing the age of any of these particular windows.
1950s.
Yeah.
Which are 1950s, which are
A double window is the 1950s.
and which of these windows are of undetermined so far age is the other big question, right? But since I'm speaking, I will say, option C, I understand the cleanliness of option C, and it appeals to my sense of order, certainly. But I want to be damn sure that I understand the age of the windows that are being affected by this, were we to go for option C.
Well, also for me, Walter, it's not just the age of the windows, but it's also just how the house has unfolded over time.
Sure.
So it's not just the windows, but also, was there a concern, at such time, that windows had to line up, no.
Right, exactly. We honor the quirk.
Yeah. There was some point, there was some organization at some point before this addition was added on. If you can see, again, maybe someday AI can figure this out or something, but it's, these two windows aligned, there's a couple of windows here that are aligned. But if you look at what it looks like now, sorry guys, see how it's kind of all just a little, that's on the Wood Street side, for what it's worth.
I mean, these sort of bar buildings that hang off houses which are kind of common around Concord. There's a randomness to the windows, and they're from having just looking myself, rarely ganged up windows. There's more wall than windows. And they're not intentionally lined up. They're just kind of fall where they needed to fall. And that's kind of what makes these bar buildings so simple and interesting.
Mm.
I still don't have a grip on C, like C, all the windows being replaced. I've lost track of what's
So all the
happening.
windows, those are all going to be new windows.
Robert, can you work off the elevation? Because I can't see those
Oh,
letters.
Okay,
Just point to what
sure.
are,
Oh, sure. So
what's,
B,
thank you.
no problem. B is new. This whole level here on option C are new windows. The ones that are B, which is this guy, are going to be replaced in the same spot. C windows is the new arrangement. These two
They're all new windows.
Yeah, they're all new windows. So 2 out of the windows, all these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 windows, 2 are being replaced and are going to be in the same location. The rest of them are in a new location.
And none of the first floor are being done on this one.
No, that's not part of the project. That's been renovated. As one of our previous projects with them. Didn't affect windows. That was that's not part of the scope of the work of the project at the moment.
Okay, thanks.
No problem.
All right, is anybody getting a sense of how we might want to proceed?
This is a hard one.
Yeah, it is.
Sorry to make your head spin.
No, I don't mean it that way. Conceptually, it's hard. It's,
Right.
And what about the 19th century windows? Are they going to be replaced in kind? Will you lose the glass then?
So
they're not restored, they'd be replaced or restored.
Replaced.
In C.
Yeah, in C.
Yeah.
And what about in B?
Also replaced.
Yeah, those 2 windows are going to be replaced.
B windows, option B, nothing gets replaced. But if you're talking about the B balloons in C, those
Yeah. Yeah, and in the original minimal option where we're changing, sorry, I'm going to maximize this, guys. Those 2 windows were replaced and moving. Those were originally 19th century windows. Everything else on option A stayed the same. It is not being touched.
All right, is anyone comfortable with removing, it's eventually removing whether they're replaced or not, removing 19th century windows?
No.
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 Okay. Nobody wants to do that.
No.
So, which option has, besides B, or is it only B, which is they have this 2 where no 19th century windows will be hurt in the making of this film? Is that just option B?
Is that a question for Robert?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm looking at the chart right now. I think if you are not comfortable,
Sorry.
will you bring up the color diagram for 1 second, Bob?
Sure. I don't want to design on the meeting, but
Yeah,
I have an idea to kind of keep these yellows. We're never intended to touch these windows. We can come up with a scheme where these windows stay and these 20th century windows get replaced. John, I'm not trying to design on this meeting.
Yeah. So I think so what we're proposing to do is to replace a few 19th century windows, which is these.
These being what?
Yellow.
Those 3.
Okay.
Okay. And we want to replace this is primarily because for reasons of organization in the rooms. And we thought that just replacing these others while we were doing that gave us a quiet back elevation where we had some continuity. This elevation, this street side elevation, all stays unchanged, even though it is a combination of 19th and 20th century windows. So, and in terms of the terms of the priority of the most public views, these were the things that we thought were appropriate for us to be maintaining. And the back, we thought we had a little bit more ability to get something that was a little bit more high performed a little bit better. And but we did try and get a little bit quieter and less contemporary elevation format. So I go back and say that we still would like, our preference would be to do plan C, which puts all the changes on the back side of the building. And you can give us approval to replace those windows or not. That's up to you. But we would like to be able to go ahead and do these windows on this back side, and that's the essence of our application.
Well, I thank you, John. That clarifies some things, but also it does still remain. Initially we kicked this up to this meeting because I think we were not comfortable with reorganizing the fenestration, because that kind of flies in the face of how these barn-like additions grew. It's erasure. Even if it's 20th century windows, they're in, kind of a more of a traditionally haphazard pattern.
You're talking about the location, Kate?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think that was, something, Dennis and I, at least, and maybe others, were wondering about at the last meeting. Where do you stand on that, Tim?
Yeah, I guess I mean, I don't think you want to try to, I don't know, I don't know, historically with the historic district, if, can you go from one somewhat random pattern to another? Is that just a no-no in historic districts? I think that's what I was hearing maybe you and Dennis saying. I'd rather it not be regularized and not try to line up windows. There is something haphazard which gives it its charm. So but also look at the ganged windows, the two windows together, they're the 50s, and I go, that's not what these barns had.
I have the same reaction.
Yeah.
They have their individual window punches every 10 feet or so. More wall than window is what I've seen around Concord. So I don't have if I think, well, there's a preference for just going to individual windows. I guess I'm thinking, is there a way we can preserve the left three windows, the old windows, and let them replace the right windows? And I'd have to look at the pattern again, but at least it would break up the two windows that are together, which I don't think any of us are a fan of.
What about John and Bob?
I think we can.
At some point, so what we've got is we got the commission designing the elevation, which is it's very, very hard to anticipate what any one member will say on. So that's a little bit difficult. So we tried to remove the most offensive piece, which was that double window, and in doing so, on the one elevation said this is the quietest place to do it, and tried to take it back to something that at least was trying not to be self-important. So if you guys want to design an elevation and submit it to us for approval, how about if we do that?
If I may, that's a little bit extreme, I think.
John, can I ask you a question?
At the last meeting, my concern, and I think I triggered an awful lot of this, was that you were moving windows to accommodate the equality of floor space in two kids' bathrooms.
True.
And by doing that, you needed to put a wall dividing it in half And by putting the wall where you proposed putting it, you needed to change the windows. That's an entirely different thing than the commission designing the facade of your building for you, in fairness. And I appreciate that seems to have been taken to heart here. I am still of the opinion that we should not be eliminating 19th century windows.
Okay,
I have a suggestion.
So I have a question then.
Lewis?
I'm going to ask for, can we go, Bob, can you bring up the plan which does not, which leaves all the windows in its existing location,
Sure,
which I think is B.
that's correct.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
So if it's the 19th century windows that you don't want us to touch, are those three? I'm sorry, that's too many. No, that's wrong. I'm gonna undo that one.
That's Wood Street, right?
Yeah.
We can.
If we just leave all these windows as they are, can we replace these two windows on this elevation? Those are 20th century windows.
Mm-hmm.
That's correct. So the 20th century windows is just basically this back part of the this.
So we're talking about the two on the end.
Yeah.
I think
Just the two on
I think
the end,
our
nothing
position, if I can speak for my fellows, and I don't mean to if you don't want me to, but I think that our position has evolved a little bit as we've been confronted with this, and moving a little bit beyond just the concept of 19th century windows, but honoring the concept of the history of the building, including the positions of 20th century windows. So if the question now is, would we be okay with replacing those two end windows? Let's talk about that, but let's move on from the rest of it.
Wait, Louis Caldarella, were you trying to say something?
I'm thinking it's those three windows that everyone feels very strongly about, both in terms of the windows themselves and the fenestration. And you keep showing us things where the fenestration changes too. And I think if the fenestration on those three windows were to remain the same and those three windows were to be restored instead of replaced, people might feel less strongly about that double window from the 50s in terms of both fenestration and replacement. You know, we haven't had an option where we can retain the 19th century fenestration and windows and possibly clean up a little bit of the 20th century disaster. Right? Is there one that I'm missing that has those, you know, that kind of cleans up the right side but maintains the left side?
It doesn't, but I think in thinking on the fly while we're receiving your feedback, I think we could, if that's the direction of the board, with board thoughts, is these three windows here that are important. And if you're okay with us kind of, I don't know how to say this, but like if we can make this less double, you know, remove these double windows, which like as Tim said, we can kind of clean this up on this end. We can come back to you with a revised scheme that kind of gets everything in order. One scheme, not A, B, C, D, E, F, G, but I think there's a way. I think I can make this work, John. And I'd rather not do it on the. I'd rather not do it on the call here. Guys, cover your ears. But no, I'm kidding. I think there's a way we can make the best of both worlds and make the project, this project work, and make sure the board's comfortable.
All right. Well, wait, before you go, you know, back to your drawing board, I just, you know,
and I have a drawing board right here.
Before you even look at it, then, you know, so to the rest of the commission, are there any options that we would approve right now or not? Because if there are, or there is an option, you know, if it's like, actually, we would rather there be no change, then that was option B.
Yeah, that's being offered as an option, right? That we don't change anything.
Right.
So I guess we could vote on that.
Yes, I'd like you to vote on that, because if I'll at least have to take this back to the owners and
Yeah.
ask them if they want to continue in this in this effort.
Any, you know.
But if I may say something.
Please do.
I don't think I think that has been, with all due respect to our friends John Battle and Robert Drew, this has been a very bad presentation from an architectural standpoint, because we're almost being asked to approve one of three designs, and it's forcing us to make a judgment call upon what these designs are supposed to be. I think that the architects should present us with one option, and we should have the option or the prerogative of accepting or rejecting it. That's what it's written in our bylaws. So I think that either we reject the application as it stands and ask them to submit a single application very specifically with all the information necessary. One of the things that I find as a jarring, something missing, it's the fact that there are some windows that are from maybe the 19th century, maybe the 20th century, maybe whoever. You see, but those windows may be very important historic windows. So we should have all that information if we're going to approve anything. So I think that as a commission, our role right now is going to be either to reject the application or continue the application. Continue this application, it's possible, although it will be an exception. So that's what I would suggest we do. And I will encourage John and Robert to come back next time with a single design that we approve or reject.
Okay. The reason we came back to you with these alternates is because that was exactly what you asked us to do.
I understand.
This is a case of clearly mixed signals. We came back with these options, and we're now being told, no, you should only be coming back with one. So we'd like to withdraw the ones. The only application we want to leave on this one is the one that leaves the existing windows as they are, and for which we don't really need any approvals, because I think we're not changing them. And if we choose to come back with anything further, and to pursue this further, we'll talk to the owners and see if that's something that we're going to end up coming back on. But I think for the moment, if you're not going to approve the direction that you don't like the direction that we were leaning towards, then I think we're just going to say that that's the likely direction that we'll pursue.
John, may I ask a question?
Sure.
So at one point during this discussion, you had referenced the two windows at the end of bedroom 212, and asked if you could.
These two.
Right. So what is the reason for the focus on those two windows? So is there a consideration here for like a B.1? So all windows staying as is, but the replacement of these two, and if that is something that is being considered, can you just share with us what
I was really trying to just identify whether I was trying to get a sense of priority, whether there was priority for the street side elevation, the gable end elevation, or whether in fact it ends up being the sensitivity to original fabric, which seems is what the discussion is more gearing towards. So there was no particular programmatic or aesthetic reason to focus on that end.
Okay.
Perspective.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
So you're right. You brought us options, which was helpful and clarified some things. And but it seems like the commission prefers, and we can. Well, I guess we don't have to vote on, because you're saying if.
Bob, is what I'm saying correct? That the solution which uses the existing window locations and existing windows makes no changes to the elevation. Is that correct?
Nothing. It's just we get the plan to work without. If we were to be rejected, we would go with Plan B. And that. Thank you. Okay. Nice seeing you guys again. But we'll go that direction. We're trying to get our cake and eat it too, basically. I'm trying to work with you guys.
No, thank you for going through all that. So procedurally, does Kim or Luis or Dennis, do you know, can John withdraw right now, or do we just vote on option B and then there's actually some resolution for this application?
I think they can certainly withdraw the application right now.
Well, can I have you vote on option B, since that's one of the ones we presented?
Yeah. Okay.
That's what I'd like to
No,
do.
you can vote on option
Sorry.
B. Can we just vote
Point
on?
of
Yeah, that's what I'd like to do.
clarification,
Okay,
guys,
sorry, Catherine, yeah.
sorry. Point of clarification for option B.
Mm.
Option B is assuming that both the 19th century era windows as well as the newer windows all remain, and they're just no changes entirely. In other words, we are not replacing the newer windows with windows that are, you know, more aligned with the 19th century in terms of look and style, and we are just retaining all original windows
That is
of
correct.
the two different periods of time.
Mhm.
That is
Gotcha.
correct. So effectively, you're saying that what we're saying there'd be no exterior changes to the windows as part of this renovation.
And again, sorry, just another point of clarification. The changes were mostly designed for the homeowner's preferences in terms of better light and then the better aesthetic harmony along the facade, the rear facade, I guess it is.
No, I think it was as it was put to us at the last meeting to make things as equal as possible for the kids' bathrooms.
Gotcha.
And to modernize the glazing for purposes of energy and comfort.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay. So would anyone like to make a motion of any sort with regards to 41 Wood Street?
So are we talking about making a motion to approve option B?
I think that's where we are.
Perhaps, if that's, you know, how people are
Unless you want to
feeling.
start discussing it. How about this? I move that we approve option B for 41 Wood Street as option B is submitted.
And the motion needs a second.
A second.
Okay, Catherine, you second it?
I did.
Walter, you moved?
Yes.
Thank you. And I will go around and take a vote. Catherine?
Aye.
Walter?
Aye.
Kristen?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
You're an aye?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm an aye. So
Great.
that's your resolution.
Okay, terrific. I'd rather come away with a resolution than being in limbo. So that's better than that. And if we choose to pursue it, so this application is closed
Mm-hmm.
and completed. And if we choose to pursue it, we come back and we reinitiate a new application. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, great. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks
Thank
for
you
your
all.
patience.
Okay.
Thank
Okay.
you for your
Take care, guys.
patience.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Robert.
Good night, all.
Yeah.
Okay, take care.
We'll see you
Good night,
soon, guys. Take care.
Thank you. All right.
Well, that was exhausting.
Totally.
Right. Okay, let's see. I'm down to 8% on my battery.
I have
And
motion sickness.
Speaking of exhaustion.
and so I'm trying to, we have, oh, wait a minute, I just lost it. We have a quick other business thing. 77 Walden Street. I don't even know what that's about. Yeah, there, I just said it. What's 77 Walden Street about? Anyone?
I'm afraid I don't know.
Let's continue the discussion.
Okay. Let's, what about, has anyone had a chance to review minutes?
Yes, of course.
Oh, excellent, from August 7th?
From August 7th. I think that
Oh.
it's all just perfectly fine. Thank you.
Did you check them out? I did not.
Yes, I did.
Thank
I
you.
did.
And did you find
Yeah.
any typos?
There's one typo. I didn't write it down.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, I think there's one slight missing 2 or something like that somewhere.
Okay, we can vote to approve the minutes. Seconded, so moved. Okay, I think for the minutes, can't we just say aye?
Aye,
Aye,
they're
okay.
great.
August 7th minutes approved. Kim will bounce whatever 77 Walden Street is till the next meeting when
Okay.
someone has had a chance to find out what that is.
Hopefully they'll show up.
Oh, and then that's right. And then hopefully we'll hear from Main Street.
Right.
Monica Medici.
Can I ask a rude question about minutes?
Yeah.
I'm used to places where the minutes get circulated the week after the meeting. I find trying to reconstruct minutes and recollections of discussions from 5 months ago to be a little.
Well, it wasn't always that way.
I guess the question, what would it take to get the minutes done? Because it's the same amount of time, right, to do them. And
You can increase your tax rate.
Yeah, because they get sent out to a service.
They do, so it does
service.
take time for them to come back, and then we still have to review, well, Anne has to review them. And then tweak them on her own to make sure, because they're not always correct. I think they might use some
It just
AI
strikes me as
technology. I know.
unacceptably long.
Yeah.
It's
it is
really
long,
hard. I
yeah,
usually,
yeah.
when I've read them, I usually have to try to go back and find a recording of the meeting, to be
It's
honest.
not professional.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, they
I
used
guess the
to.
outside service to go a lot faster.
Yeah, it's,
Great.
no, they used to be within about a month's time, back
Month,
when they had someone on staff who could do it.
4
but
months is not.
No,
Okay.
no, well, no, so not a rude question, just a reasonable one. Okay, anyone else have any other questions, thoughts, comments, jokes? No.
I have a lot of
Motion-
jokes.
Well, you know what, you couldn't follow option B and option C tonight, so maybe another time. But motion to adjourn.
Good joke.
Nice job on your maiden voyage.
Yes, Kate, well done. Well played.
Thank you, Catherine.
I move we adjourn.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. Thanks so much, everybody.